All right. Hello, Honors 410. So today we're getting more into the meat of the class after yesterday's more kind of introductory session. So first things I want to make mention of is I'm going to include some notes in the discussion, like the written notes part of this, about the communal writing project as well as the group-led discussions. So keep an eye out for those pieces. But to dive into the reading that was assigned for today, this is a reading I have to assume for some of you may have looked familiar. Maybe you read it in your youth. Some of you, I'm sure, have not. And so with that, this is from J.K. Rowling. This is the first chapter from the Harry Potter books. And one thing I should get out ahead of and just kind of clear the air on. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding the author J.K. Rowling at this point. I'll be transparent. I have my own inhibitions about her, reservations. I always kind of second guess whether I actually want to teach this author anymore in my course. I decided that for the purposes we're using it as kind of a gateway to speculative literature, because I know this is an entry point for so many people into this kind of genre. I still think it holds up. I still think it has value in that way, while at the same time, having some reservations about the author herself. So, all of that said, diving into the content of this reading, the first question I wanted to pose was just, in reading this, to me, one thing that strikes me every time I revisit this first chapter is there are some elements that are really creative, really fresh. I can sort of see why this book was so successful on those premises. But on the other hand, there are also some pieces of it that feel, cliche is probably too strong a word, but nonetheless, they sort of feel like tropes. They feel like things that I've seen in all sorts of other places before Harry Potter, simultaneously with that, after that. And so with that, I'm curious just about, for the class, elements of this that may seem a little bit more like, again, the cliche kind of has some negative connotations, but I don't think it's too much of a stretch to call some pieces of this sort of cliche. What are the parts that feel familiar, though? What are the parts we kind of recognize from other kinds of media and storytelling versus the parts that feel more unique and kind of original to this story? And then with that, with both the cliches and the more kind of more unique elements of this chapter, I'm curious of why it works. Right. I mean, I'll show my hand. I think it's a very successful first chapter for a novel and for a novel series. Whether you personally agree or not, as they say, that the proof is in the pudding, right? It's one of the best-selling books of all time, one of the most profitable, series of all time. So clearly it connected with a lot of people. So why do we think that it worked? Why did it connect with such a wide audience? Why is it such a treasured book among so many people? Just sort of, what do we think about that? I also wanted to read this through the lens of just thinking about this as a first chapter. And so with the communal writing project in this class, and also with some of the reading we'll be reading some novellas, by Joe Hill. First chapters kind of have some weight on them to accomplish some different things for a book. And so I'm curious of what do we feel like this first chapter sets up for us? What are kind of the promises that are made? Some of you may come from this from a perspective of having read all of the Harry Potter books, or at least some of them. If that's you, feel free to get into a little bit of kind of your perspective on that, although I'll encourage you to avoid major spoilers just in case there's someone in class who's intending to read them or watch the film still. But also for those of you who are coming at this fresh, who don't have any previous exposure, what does this seem to kind of set us up for? What do we take away from this? And then, again, this kind of relates to the discussion of, what was cliche and what was unique, but also just more broadly, I'm curious as to reactions of what makes this appealing? What makes this interesting? What makes this so captivating? Why would this kind of be the first step towards such a successful franchise of, books and movies, theme park, so on and so forth? Okay, so I'm going to restrain this video lecture to that. We're going to have some meatier ones coming up here. But I want to leave this session more open-ended, a little bit less granular about the text itself. Again, part of why I choose this text is, the familiarity of it, but also because it's written at a relatively basic level. Rowling did have in mind an audience of young readers, and so certainly I would hope everyone in this class is able to fully read this, understand this. There are kind of the deep kind of textual moments we might drill into with some of our other readings. So just sort of more general kind of reactions I'm interested in from the class. And if you have specific points you want to take us to, of course, please feel free to lead the discussion there. But okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll look forward to our discussion.